Roy. How are you?
I'm fine, Melinda. Very nice to see you today.
Nice to meet you too. Welcome to Day 3 Global Virtual Summit 2025. We have successfully completed and we really got a very good response for this day. So now for the day 3 or the first speaker, starting with a
It's
good.
a bit hard to hear you.
Okay, can
It's a
you
bit
hear me
difficult
now?
to hear.
No?
No, like I hear you, but it's very low.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me
Hi, this
okay?
is Melinda Roy. Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Hi, Nazma. How are you?
Well, thank you.
So welcome to Day 3 Virtual Summit 2025. So we have successfully completed our 2 days event. We really got a very good response from the speakers and the audience. So with the same excitement and energy, let's continue with the Day 3. And this is the last day for the Virtual Summit 2025. And you are the first speaker for this Day 3 event. So welcome on stage, Nazma M. Rosado. So before you start your presentation, I would like to introduce you to the audience who you are and your accomplishments. So with nearly 30 years of experience in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and biotech, Nasma is a principal consultant at Avion Consulting, specializing in organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and change management. As an executive coach and project management professional, she designs impactful strategies in communication, training, and process optimization. Holding a master's in organizational leadership, she also teaches at Suffolk University Law School and Framingham State University. A global leader adept at cross-cultural collaborations, Nasma's expertise in audience analysis and strategic thinking drives scalable, high-impact solutions that foster employee engagement and workplace transformation. Wow, that's really wonderful introduction of Nasma. So you can occupy the stage and good luck.
Thank you, Melinda. I appreciate it. All right,
Thank
let me get my slides up and rolling as we prepare to have our wonderful conversation today. So just give me one moment to switch over. There we go. Fantastic. Hopefully everyone can see those slides and hear me perfectly well. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about imposter syndrome and your authentic self. So how do we actually break free from self-doubt? So if you have ever experienced imposter syndrome, then first of all, the one thing that I would say to you is it's completely normal, right? You're amongst friends because as an executive coach, I have probably coached about 100 different individuals at this point, and every single one of them has one thing in common. And that one thing is that they have or have had imposter syndrome sort of sneak into their consciousness and disrupt their ability to be as effective as they can be. So, as we talk today, we're going to talk a little bit about how do we really, get a hold of the voice that sometimes comes into the back of our heads and slows us down. So, speaking a little bit about what exactly is imposter syndrome, okay? So, it's this, somewhat hidden, right, phenomenon where it doesn't really necessarily show itself externally to others in your audience and your presence. It's more what's going on in your mind. So it's this psychological experience where you hold yourself back because there's this false belief that you're somehow not good enough, right? You're not prepared enough. You're not smart enough. Why me? Am I the right person for this? The true answer is yes, you are, right? You're the right person. There's a reason why you've been, given that position or presented with that award or why you've been asked to speak. It's because you've earned your space. However, what tends to happen is we just get so wrapped up in thinking, oh my God, Am I the right person? And is this the right moment for me to be here? Do I have enough to offer? So, what I want to first explore is, where does this come from, right? Why do we feel this? Why does this pull on us and hold us back so much? And what I've found is that it tends to come from some early experiences. So, early workplace trauma, right? Having a really bad experience at some portion of your early career. Sometimes it even comes from childhood. If you have, some sort of disruption in your family that caused you to feel like, oh, I don't feel like I have a voice, or I don't feel like my voice is important, or no one wants to hear from me. Okay. It might have been a teacher at some point who um, said the wrong thing in the wrong moment, and it stuck with you. So those are really the origins of, why do you have that doubt? Why do you think that there's some ideal of perfect, which by the way does not exist, but then we feel like we need to chase that and we're not it? So it's one of the things that's incredibly common across, it doesn't matter if you are new to the work environment, it doesn't matter if you are very well tenured. You might be younger, you might be older, you might be junior, you might be very senior. Everyone experiences this at some point. And for most people, unless if you get the ability to wrap your arms around it and really take hold of, how do I control this and not let it control me? If you're not able to do that, it sticks with you sort of forevermore, right? And you have this continuous cycle of doubting yourself. The problem with that is, when we doubt ourselves, we don't put our best selves forward. So not only are we not expressing all that we know and all that we've experienced and all the expertise that we've gained, but others aren't able to benefit from that, right? And that's the key. We want to actually be able to share our voices, share our knowledge, share our opinions, and have it explored, have it discussed, have it actually, help influence some decisions that are being made. And if the voice is telling us, well, why should you speak? Right? Why should you sit at the table instead of along the back around the wall? Okay. If that voice is holding you back, you're not putting your best self forward. So, how do we really deal with this, right? Well, the first thing we need to do is recognize the signs. Do you constantly compare yourself to others? Do you think, well, I wish I spoke as eloquently as that person, or I wish I seemed as confident as this person? Gosh, I wish I had, whichever degree or certification, right? That comparison game will do nothing to help you. It will only hurt you, because usually we don't look at others and say, well, oh, well, I'm in a better position, because, well, that's just kind of rude, right? And none of us, and hopefully we're not, comparing ourselves to others and feeling like they're less than. If so, we have a whole different conversation we need to have. But more likely than not, you compare yourself to others and you think, wow, that person is the epitome of, excellence or perfection or eloquence or whatever it might be. Okay. And it's a good thing to have your mentors that you rely on. It's a good thing to have people who can coach you into, how do I evolve and develop and become, exactly what I'd like to be, more so. And it's a good thing to have people that you want to emulate. However, you can't constantly be checking, what am I against someone else, right? You might say, here's someone who's a great speaker. I'd like to be a better speaker and be able to speak like that. What can I do to improve my speaking skills? Right. But if you're not actually making those changes, but you just keep looking at the comparison, you're just creating a divide between where you are today and where you could be tomorrow. If you have those feelings of, um, faking it till you make it, right? And you feel like, oh my gosh, any moment now, someone can call me out on this, or someone might ask a question I don't have the answer to. Well, first of all, it's completely fine to not have the answer to every question, right? So we need to get over a little bit of the sense of, we must know all things and we must be all things to all people. It's not possible, right? You have to really be true to yourself. That's the key to all of this. Know who you are and be confident in putting yourself forward. Okay. Because when it comes to looking at deeply at ourselves, we really need to understand what makes us who we are, right? What are our values? What are the things that drive us? What's our purpose? What's our why? If you stay focused on that and you know, okay, none of us is perfect, but perfection is not real, right? We're works in progress. We're going to get there. If someone asks me a question about something and I don't know the answer, it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know, right? Let me follow up on that. I'm not sure. You actually become more credible when you say those things and then follow through on your commitments than if you make it up or if you just kind of give them an answer that doesn't really answer their question, which is what people oftentimes do. Okay. Another thing is when you do achieve whatever it is that you set your sights on, right? The promotion, the new job, the opportunity, whatever that might present itself as. If you don't recognize that you've gotten those opportunities and that you have succeeded because you've worked hard, because you've put your best foot forward, because you've really approach this, right, with the right mindset, then you're going to start thinking, well, it only happened because, right? They gave me this award because this person won it last year and they couldn't give it to them a second time. Or I've only been put into this role because whomever left, right? When you do that, you're actually diminishing the achievements that you have worked so hard to achieve. So if we're in this cycle of we're trying super hard, we want to be perfect, we're comparing ourselves to others, we feel like we're less than, and then when we do achieve something, we don't even attribute that success to our hard work. Well, where's the happiness? Where's the contentment in all of this? Right? It's very important to not get caught up in believing you're not good enough, right? Even when you're achieving. That's like the worst thing because you're doing the work and you're making progress, yet still you're holding yourself back. So, common symptoms are that self doubt, right? Insecurity. Okay, well, we all have some level of insecurity, right? I mean, I think if no one had, or if anyone was completely lacking in that whole concept of questioning and wondering and thinking, we'd probably be a little bit obnoxious, right? So it's perfectly healthy to ask yourself, did I prepare enough for this? Did I do the work? Am I speaking on a topic that I know I can speak on, right? Am I putting myself into the right situations? Do I belong there? It's okay to ask those questions so long as you follow that up with knowing you don't need to be perfect and knowing that, everyone else in that space is asking themselves the same questions, right? It's not dissimilar from when we were younger in school and you're so concerned of what are people thinking about me. Well, each individual in that space is feeling the same exact thing. No one's actually focused on you because we're all battling our own thoughts, right? About where we are and how we're doing and how others are perceiving us. So it's okay to question, did I make my best effort? Because we want to always put our best effort forward. However, being concerned consistently of, oh my gosh, they're going to think this, or they're going to see this, or they're going to ask this, you're in your own head. Okay. It's an interesting thing when we think about, if you get all dressed up and you're going somewhere and you ask someone, how does this look? It's a very different thing than if you say, do I look fat in this? Right? If you start putting out the negative, you put people in that mindset. So even in those moments when you feel a little, oof, I'm nervous, there's 300 people in the audience and I'm going to get up and speak to them. Oh my gosh, right? That's normal. That's a healthy anxiety. But when you start convincing yourself that you're not the right person to be there, that's unhealthy. Okay. And that's what I want you to limit because there's a deep psychological impact to this. Anxiety is not a healthy place to be in consistently, right? If you're depressed because you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling just incredibly burnt out because you've put so much effort into something and you still feel it isn't good enough, I invite you to really think about what's that level of good enough and where is that coming from. right? So going back to thinking about that origin of where does this come from, did someone at some point give you feedback that that speech could have really, been buffed and shined a little bit? Or, well, this was a very good report, but whatever it is, that's okay. Take that feedback and use it. Use that to help drive you forward. Don't sit in it. Okay. Don't attribute feedback to a report, a presentation, any work product as feedback on your character because it's not. And oftentimes we tend to do this. We tend to start analyzing it and thinking, oh my gosh, they're saying that I'm not X, Y, and Z. It's not about you. It's usually about whatever the work product is. Okay. So, in order to really combat this, in order to have the tools in your toolbox to believe in yourself and drive yourself forward, because if you don't believe in you, how are you going to convince others to believe in you? Right? It starts with us having that confidence, and that confidence comes from really knowing ourselves. Who are we? And being and staying true to ourselves. Okay. So when we talk about your authentic self, it might seem a little buzzworthy, right? It might feel like, well, people tend to say authentic self. There might be several different presentations and know your authentic self. What it really means is understanding who you are. What is your belief system? What are your values? What are the strengths that you bring to any situation? Okay. And also feeling comfortable with being and expressing your true self. So I will tell you, my true self is very casual. I'm not really into formalities. I think I'm funny, but my jokes are usually, silly. I am a hard worker and I'm very driven, right? My values really come from my childhood. My parents were, very comedic, told lots of great jokes. They were very diligent and, I had to study hard. I had to, work hard, and they really instilled in me a very strong work ethic. So when I have those moments where I start thinking, oh my gosh, I might be nervous about this, right? I then stop and think, well, no, I know I have a strong work ethic because my entire life I have been working extremely hard to create the best possible outcome that I can. Is it perfect? No, because perfect doesn't exist. Is it good because I've actually put and dedicated my time, my effort, my energy into it? Yeah, it is good, right? And now if I believe that it's good, other people will see that it's good. The components of being authentic, that authenticity idea has to do with self-awareness. Do I know what my strengths are, but also what are my weaknesses? Where can I strengthen myself, and where can I leverage my strengths? Right? Knowing that is extremely important, as well as understanding what are my motivations. Intrinsically, what drives me? Is it development? Is it community? Is it accomplishments? Like, what is the thing that really gets me going and gets me excited and motivates me to dive deeper? Okay. Also, being open and honest and being okay with being vulnerable. Okay. It's okay. We all have moments of being vulnerable. But if you understand what makes you feel that, then you can combat that with really thinking about, well, what are my values and what are my beliefs? Tell me about that, right? It's okay to learn new things. It's okay to be scared sometimes. It's okay to, step outside of your norm because that's where we learn and that's where we grow. So there's this intersection that happens between having that imposter syndrome where you're concerned about, oh, am I good enough? Right? Can I really do this? And the self-doubt that goes along with that. But the intersection is if you have that self-doubt, can't you combat that by thinking about what you know is true about yourself? Right? I know I prepared for this exam. I know I studied. I know I'm a smart person, right? And I know that I'm really passionate about doing well in this exam so that whatever could happen next, right? If you leverage and rely on your authenticity and knowing yourself, it is going to wash away the self doubt and the imposter syndrome symptoms that tend to creep in. It's also really important to recognize that there are barriers that tend to pop up. Okay. So sometimes we're not as willing to take that look in the mirror. You need to treat yourself with grace and compassion. Okay. The same level of grace you would give to someone else who's imperfect and learning and growing and developing into their best self, give that grace to yourself because you're also imperfect and learning and growing and further developing. That's all of us. Okay. Sometimes things don't go well. It doesn't mean you're any less of a person. It doesn't mean you're any less of an expert. It doesn't mean that you're any less in any way. Sometimes things go well, sometimes they do not. Pick yourselves up and keep moving forward, knowing who you are and what you have to offer. So practice self compassion, practice self reflection. Look back at every experience that you have as you have them, thinking, what went well? What can we maybe refine? And be very balanced about it. Don't spend all your time on what could be better without acknowledging what was quite good. And really challenge those negative thoughts as they start creeping in. Push them aside. Replace it with, okay, maybe I could have made this presentation more interactive. However, there was a lot of content I really wanted to make sure people understood in a short amount of time, right? So there's, checks and balances that we have between the two. How do we reframe the way that we think? Okay. Identify when there's a negative thought. If there's something, you're getting prepared to present at a meeting or you're getting prepared to go to a networking event. For some of us, that's actually quite a challenge, right? Identify what are the things that are concerning you and then think about all of your strengths that you can leverage to combat them. Challenge your thoughts and reframe your perspective, right? Take the positive spin on how can this turn out. Don't get into the spiral of what if, what if, what if, what if, right? That it can be paralyzing. Instead, when we what if it, think about all the good things that can come out of it. What if I walk over to that group and I introduce myself and I realize that that's someone that actually we have a connection. We went to the same school a long time ago, or we attend the same church, or whatever it might be. What if in this whole entire room of 50, 60 people, I make one really good, like lifelong friend, right? What if the best possible thing happens? So what you need to do is really work on building your confidence and knowing yourself. Okay. Track your progress. Who we were, a year ago is not who we are today. Goodness gracious, who we were 5 years ago is not who we are today, right? The whole entire world has changed. Track your progress, short-term goals, little things that you can incrementally increase and become stronger in is really important. Seek feedback. When you get feedback from others, intake it and determine, okay, what can I do with this, right? How do I translate that? And then really get to know your strengths. So some of the strategies, set realistic goals, set small goals, right? So that you have that incremental build. Seek mentorship. Having someone who you can check in with and say, does this make sense? Does this seem like it's well defined? I've really thought it through and I'm ready to really launch in. And network and build relationships. If you walk into a room one day and there's 50 people you don't know, you're not going to feel very comfortable. If you walk into the same room with the same people, 1 year later, and you know half of them, your level of comfort will be greatly increased. That level of comfort helps you to be more authentic, which helps you to drive away those imposter syndrome thoughts that creep and seep in. So remember, self-care, prioritize yourself and your mental health. Okay. Seek a feedback, take the feedback, understand what you can do with the feedback. All right. Focus on the present. Don't spend all of your time thinking about that one time I gave a presentation and it went really poorly. Here's all the horrible things. Focus on the present, what you can control. And if it's really to the point where you need coping mechanisms, seek therapy or really get an executive coach. right? To help you really define what are my core strengths, what are my core values, and how do I reframe my thinking so that I'm not focused on the negative, but I'm focused on what's possible. When it comes to mentors, they're there to give you guidance, to give you perspective, and to help boost your confidence by pointing out the successes and the growth that you're exhibiting. As someone who is a mentor, who's an executive coach, who works with people and helping them see what's possible, what's the future, it is usually the smallest little things that we don't see because we're so caught up in judging ourselves. And those little tiny things can help propel us forward with just a great amount of thrust. So find those mentors and then some practical things you can do. Do a strengths assessment. So it really becomes evident. Here are the things that I'm strong at. Here are the things I'm good at. Understand what your values are and where they come from. And then I'm a huge fan. I often speak about developing your personal brand. Who are you and what do you want people to know about you? There's a difference between your reputation and your brand. Your reputation is the assumption or the perception people form based on your past experiences. Your brand is what you put forward, right? That's how you want to be known. So you have full control over who your brand and what your brand is and what people see and learn and hear about and then therefore expect from you. How do we make all of these changes? Create a goals, right? Create some goals, create your own personal action plan. Identify what your goal is, set a due date, and then create small wins. We're not going to go from, 0 to 1 million, you know, immediately. Small wins will help us feel satiated in our growth, in our development, help us feel more confident as we move forward. Okay. That's really all I have for you today. I did want to make sure, though, that you walk away knowing imposter syndrome, completely common. Every single person has that voice in their head that tells them, oh gosh, are you really ready for this? Okay. But if you know who you are and what you're good at, you have the ability to overcome that. With that, I thank you guys for all being here, for joining this session, and for sticking with us. If you have any questions, I invite you to reach out to me. My LinkedIn is in my profile. And also, if there's anything that you'd like to know additionally, you could feel free to put it into the chat. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So in that case, I think I will turn it back over. And thank you all for joining today.
Thank you so much, Nazma.
Thank you
Your
so much,
thoughts are really
your thoughts
insightful.
are really insightful.
My
You can
pleasure,
hear me,
Melinda.
right?
You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yes.
So we do have a question from the
So
audience.
we do have a question from the audience.
If leadership development were treated like a
Leadership
commerce,
development were treated like a commerce.
what would be the most common side effects
What would be
and
the
how
most
would you
common side
mitigate them?
effect? How would you mitigate them?
If you could say it one more time, that would be great. If leadership development were,
If leadership development
If
were
leadership
treated like a
development were treated like a
pharmaceutical file,
pharmaceutical fire,
what would be the most common side
what
effect?
would be the most common side effect?
Okay, so the most common side effect of leadership development, if treated like a clinical trial, which I love this question because my background is actually in biotech and pharma. So, the most common side effect of leadership development, um, oh, that's a really great question. I think more so than a side effect of it, it's the challenge of leadership development is time, right? We always feel like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough time to work on ourselves, to develop, things that we need to develop for ourselves. Um, the most common symptoms actually can show up in not being the most effective leader, not, having the right skills and not being what you need to be for the people who you're leading, right? Whether that's being a visionary or inspirational leader, being a democratic leader, being, sometimes a commanding leader, knowing what type of leadership style you need to step into at the time is really important. And so if you don't have the time to develop those, to understand those, and then to implement those, that would be a great challenge. As far as a side effect to actually leadership development, I do think that there are times where people get so caught up in the modes and the models and the methods and following, reading every book and trying to follow what they've read in the book, that they can become unfocused. So, not to keep plugging having an executive coach because I am one, but I will say even I have one. I think that it's really important to have someone who can help you understand what your plan needs to be and how do you focus on one thing at a time so that you're not pulled in every direction trying to do everything all at once. Because that's usually a recipe for, I don't want to say disaster, but not achieving your goals as quickly or as completely as you'd like.
Wow, that's really wonderfully
Wow,
explained.
that's
So we
really
never
wonderful experience. So we
understanding
never
that received the answer. So thank you
received
so much for
Thank you
starting
so much for
the session.
starting
It was
this.
really a very good start for the day
Really
towards
very good start for the
2025.
viewers. But
So hoping the same energy will
so
continue
if
for the
you
rest
say
of the week.
you
And
continue
that's
for the
it.
rest of the
Please do join our next speaker and
please
share
do
your
join us
thoughts and share your questions and share it for
your
your love.
questions
Thank
and
you.
share your love. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Please do join our next speaker. She's in the
Please do join
backstage.
our next speaker. She's in
Yes.
the backstage. Yes.
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me now?
Hello, can you hear me now?